day 3. We are like, good morning, Maricela. What's everybody doing to get ready for day 3 of Techqueria's Latinx Heritage Month celebration? About to make your coffee. Okay. Let's see who else we got on here. I see 156 of you guys, so I need 156 responses in the chat. Let's see. Finishing work early for the DJ session. All right. Thank you, Melanie. All right. Well, we are going to get started. So good morning, everyone. It is Friday. Try not to cry. It is Friday. Today, actually, for casual Fridays, tamales and champurro. Nice. I don't think I said that right. Champurrado. There we go. Coffee and working. So today for casual Friday, I figured I would actually represent today because, I'm here from the podcast community, right? So this is the shirt from Podcast Movement. It's a fist holding a microphone. And I've worn this everywhere, probably in like 6 states by now. Getting your toddler prepped, drinking your coffee, portfolio. So yeah, I wear this shirt everywhere because, I love to represent the podcast community and the podcast work that I've done over the past few years. So that's my way of representing the community, So it's day 3, Techqueria, Latinx Heritage Month celebration. First couple of days, first day was focused on careers. Second day focused on identity. And now third day, we're focusing on, community, exactly what I've been saying. It's early in the morning, I haven't eaten breakfast, so this is where I am at. Okay, so I hope you have all had great conversations, great sessions. I've been seeing some of the movement on Instagram, on Twitter, on social media. So happy that so many of you are getting so much out of this. I know the organizers are happy. So another day, let's go, great energy. So on this third day, what I wanted to start out was a recap of the past couple of days of what I've been sharing. So day 1, I was sharing about careers, right? So it was about losing my dream job, building brick by brick the Immigration Mike podcast until I got the chance to, I was placed in the proximity of being able to ask someone for an internship. And I had just turned 30 in learning how to be a podcast producer. And then day 2, I spoke about what it took to become a versatile and multifaceted podcast producer. And, this really meant humbling myself and, opening elevators for guests and getting them water and learning how to prepare and learning how to be a project manager. And through those small tasks, it's the reason why I am the podcast producer that I am. And I talked about really leaning into your identity and the complex, multidimensional identities that we have. And I spoke about, some of the stuff that I love, like Grey's Anatomy, Friends, WWE, all of this stuff, J. Cole, Drake, that really encompasses my style and how to be a producer. And all of that led to the launch of Momentum or Race Forward podcast, the podcast that I work at, and really just like added a brand new dimension to the work that I do for the racial justice organization that I work for. And so that leads me to day 3, community. So on day 3, it's going to be a little bit of a different spin, but it's going to be a very real spin that really accentuates why community is so important and why, why like the things we go through just like, drive our love for what we do. And I hope you take inspiration from this and apply it to today's date and the program that we have today. So I'm going to share the COVID story is what I call it. So I was at a podcast conference that began so this story begins in March 2020. And at the time, everybody was sort of joking around still about COVID. Everybody was kind of bumping elbows. There were no masks at the time. But things got very real the night I came back and flew back from Orlando. This was the night that everything shut down, where the NBA season was canceled. Tom Hanks had COVID. The president was trying to shut everything down at the time. And that's when everything went into lockdown, right? So I walked through those airport doors and the world changes. And a couple of months pass, COVID begins spreading all over New York. And I was living in Queens, and so Elmhurst Hospital was the epicenter. So I began hearing ambulances all day and all night. Um, and so I mentioned I was an intern with Latinos Out Loud, and I had also worked with a great group of other interns that I was managing. And one of those interns, his name was Jose Tibby, and Tibby was this like amazing, just gentle soul that brought so much light into the world. And he was also an aspiring podcast producer. And I remember we had gotten together a couple of weeks after, and we had spoken about all these big dreams and aspirations that we had together, that we were going to do in podcasting. And a couple more weeks pass, and I get a text from one of the executive producers, and he said, "Hey, man, Tibby's gone. He passed away from COVID." And that, just rocked my world. To have worked with someone who was so passionate, who has so many dreams and aspirations, to just be taken immediately, and who was a podcast producer as well, just really rocked my world. And, it really set in motion how I began seeing the crisis that we were facing with COVID in our communities, because he lived in Washington Heights, and he was he faced health disparities. So a couple more months pass, and we get to October, I want to say, and I had just moved to Jersey City, and I had to break the news to my dad that my uncle had passed from COVID in Guatemala. November, we get together as a family. We have Thanksgiving. December starts. I'm driving. I get a text from my sister. "Hey, my mom has COVID." Then my dad has COVID. Then my brother has COVID. Then my youngest brother has COVID. And then my sister, she didn't tell us. I mean, she was pregnant, but then she had COVID. And to just see your whole family suffer through COVID, and my parents go to the emergency room. My mom's about to pass away. They're about to put her on the ventilator, but she hears this and she gets up and she starts fighting, right? She starts fighting hard. And she miraculously recovers because she had a medical background in Ecuador. So like when she was in this semi-comatose state, she heard the word ventilator. She knew that if she was put on there, she was going to be gone. So she fought back, and she fought hard, and she recovered. And now it's the last week of December, and I start feeling something weird in my nose. It feels like I have huffed paint, right? And I start sneezing and coughing, and I go get tested, and it comes back positive, right? Now it's I'm thinking 8 days, I'll get through it, no problem. Now it's January 6th. Now, if all of you know what January 6th was, that was the day of the insurrection, right? So I'm watching the world fall apart, but at the same time, my body's falling apart. My fever is spiking to crazy levels. I'm coughing my lungs out, and I end up having to drive myself to the Hoboken emergency room, where they find that not only has my COVID gotten severe, but like I have pneumonia on top of it, which is the worst case scenario. So I get discharged, and I go back to Long Island, and my family takes care of me. They've all recovered by now for the next 2 weeks. But that was the hardest fight I have ever had to go through. My lungs were like, I would try to sleep and I would try to recover, but like air would like escape my lungs, and I would wheeze, and you could hear me coughing from outside the house. And so that really puts into perspective, how much your family loves you, how much your community, the well wishes that I was getting at the time. And it really taught me, like I felt firsthand what so many people who have gotten infected and who have ultimately passed away have felt. It's unlike anything, but the resilience it took to get through it is just, barely hanging on. So that's a lot of the story. Well, what I will say is that then the fight becomes personal, because living in Jersey City Heights, I began seeing the disparities in the infection rates and the vaccination rates on Long Island and in Jersey City. And so I began making vaccine appointments for everyone that I could. And it was so hard to get a vaccine appointment. It was like trying to get a ticket for like a Bad Bunny concert on StubHub. but it was the bots and the tech that that I was able to utilize on Twitter to make these appointments for my barber, for the lady who makes the sandwich that I eat every day, because these folks didn't have access. And so again, it just really made the fight personal. What I will end off actually with is that COVID hasn't stopped affecting my world. And so I'm here in Las Vegas again, just wrapping up this conference and this podcast project. But my grandfather actually just passed away from COVID. I want to say last week, last Thursday, last Friday, in Guatemala. And it's just been tragedy after tragedy, But the reason why I'm telling this story is because the power of community, the power of resilience, the power of building together and being together. Not only did I get through this with the help of my community and my family, but I've done everything in my power to give that back through trying to make vaccines, through my work at Race Forward, because this is personal. So much has been taken from me, and a part of me was taken from me with having COVID. So with that, I really hope that in what we build together, we can build bigger, we can build better, we can be more resilient, and just seeing all the love in this community as you all navigate your personal experiences, career experiences. We have such complex, multi-layered identities that we carry, and how we bring all of that together. That's how we can achieve amazing things with each and every day that we're given to make the most of. I'm looking in the chat. Ricardo, Francis, Crystal, Melissa, Edgar, I see you all. And thank you so much. So before I introduce our next guest, this is the final opening. If you would all, I'm going to drop my Instagram handle and my LinkedIn. Really hope to connect with most of you. So we're ready to welcome our next guest, Eric Lopez. Thank you, Eileen. So Eric, when you are ready to join us, please join us. Thank you, Techqueria team. Really appreciate that. Eric, how are you, man?
Hey, what's going on?
I like the plaid that you got going on back there.
Yeah, I know.
Eric, so I'm going to do a really quick intro. So Eric Lopez, you are the CEO, co-founder of the collaborative social planning app Busy, an actor most known for your role of Hector on the CW's Emmy award-winning show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Welcome, Eric. So before I leave you, I did have a question for you. So I saw on your Instagram you are an aficionado of a pumpkin spice latte.
Yeah.
So my question is, having worked with actors and podcasters, everybody has their own routine. What is your what do you need to drink or eat on set every time for you to be at your top notch on the CW?
Well, just coffee and water, man. Pretty simple. But yeah, pumpkin spice lattes. I find that I usually get at least one or two per season. I can't have them every day. A little too sweet for that.
That's true. I also see you in the gym, keeping that physique going, man. So, Eric, well, it was my honor to introduce you. You are a keynote speaker, leaving you here to talk to our fine folks today on the third day Latinx Heritage Month, Techqueria, and we are focusing on community. Thank you, Eric.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. All right. So I'm going to be sharing my screen here. All right. How's it going, everyone? Start from the very beginning here. Today's talk, I wanted to talk about using your past to empower your future. And, as it was mentioned, I was working on the CW and I transitioned from entertainment to tech, but I've actually had a lot of transitions in my life. And during that journey, I've realized that there's so many different aspects, not only as a Latino, but also too, just as a human being, where we use our past as like a negative thing that we put in our head. And what I really wanted to teach you and talk to you about was how our past can actually empower our future. So that's why the key words here, past, future, and empowerment. I mean, so many times I hear people saying, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. And there's like imposter syndrome sometimes, right? But it's important to know that if you take anything away from this talk, it's that the past is actually not a negative. It's your superpower. And hopefully by me sharing my journey, you feel empowered by your own past to go forward and start your own company or take a leadership role or to take those next steps in a career transition. And that's what the talk is going to be about today. So yeah, quick overview. Going over my background, limiting beliefs that I discovered along the way, along my journey, the switch that kind of helped me, get into gear and say, all right, I'm doing this. I'm starting a tech startup and I'm going to be leading a team. And going from entertainment to tech, talking about that transition a little bit more, and then just an overall recap. So first, background about me. So I am the CEO and co-founder of Busy. We are a social planning app helping people find time for one another. So basically combining these productivity tools for scheduling and a social platform with like profiles and chat. And something that's very important to understand is that I didn't always have this like vision of being in startups or being an entrepreneur. This slowly kind of came about, and I really wanted to hit in the head that I actually started acting before I did tech, right? And I did this for 9+ years. I was in entertainment. I did shows for 4 years on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which was on CW. And then I did 3 years on an MTV show called MTV's Faking It. So I've been on set, and then I've been doing other jobs too on the side, like video editing and cinematographer, but mostly in the entertainment space. But even before that, I never really pictured myself being an actor at all. See, my background is being a Latino, Mexican, first generation. My parents are from Mexico, and being a middle child, right? So I think it's important to say that I'm a middle child because I realized that my sister being a firstborn, there was so much pressure, and I was able to observe this kind of from afar that she had to kind of live up to what our immigrant parents wanted her to be. And that's also going to be another topic as well, is like, throughout this talk is just understanding that the family dynamic is so important as far as like, if you're talking about your past and you want to get to somewhere else, you got to understand what's going on, with not only with your own home and how you were raised, but also to how they were raised. So you can truly understand, okay, this is my past. I feel proud about it. I feel empowered, and I'm going to move forward. Something that was very interesting is like whenever we, being a first generation to immigrant parents, they wanted me to be have a respectable career. Be a computer engineer was one of the things that came up, and it was mostly because I love being around computers. I love tech. And whenever my sister decided to be a lawyer, I knew I didn't want to do that. But, if anyone's watching this knows, like immigrant parents, they want you to take the safe career. And computer engineer was the one that didn't get them to get upset with me. So I kept on saying it all throughout middle school and high school. And I believed it too. I was like, I think this is what I really want to do. So I went to University of Texas in Dallas to be a computer engineer. And I realized that, okay, I'm not as passionate about coding and math as I thought, because everyone else here is super passionate about it. So I changed my major. I became a graphic design and video production major. And I also went into acting full time. So that was a big switch, telling my parents that. They were not fans at first. But I really took that moment, and that was the first time that I really said, hey, okay, so why why did I keep on saying that I was going to be a computer engineer? Why did I allow that to be a part of who I am and part of my history? So that's why I wanted to go into limiting beliefs. This is for ourselves, but also like just in general. Whenever you're around people or an environment, what you see is what you believe, right? So if your mom, your dad, your cousins, your uncles, they're all in the medical field. you're going to start thinking, oh, well, maybe I should be in the medical field, right? It becomes comfortable. It's like, this is something that I can do. It's possible. But if they're not doing anything related to that, like let's just say, for example, they're all in the restaurant business, then you're going to start thinking, oh, maybe I can be in the restaurant business. It's all about who you're around and what you see people doing, your friends doing, your coworkers doing, to make you really feel like this is possible. And this all stems from parents just wanting safety for their kids, right? So if you have a good job, they don't want you to struggle, they want you to be respected. They don't want you to break away from something that they are not aware of. And this can be both good and bad because obviously they care about you, but it can be bad because then you end up getting in a situation where, like me, I'm like, oh, I'm going to end up doing this because this is the safe route. But I realized that's not really what I wanted to do, and I wasn't happy doing it. Some people don't realize that until way later on. And then you're 10 years deep or 20 years deep into a career. And it gets with immigrant parents, it's even more, it's a lot of the same, but a little bit different. Immigrant parents just don't want you to rock the boat. They want you to, work hard, head down, and have stability. And it was a process trying to really understand like what it was that was different between myself and my friends. Because my friends sometimes would choose other careers that I was like, oh wow, like that's really interesting and unique. And I kept on thinking, I couldn't do that. That's not me. But deep down inside, really what I was thinking is I didn't want to rock the boat. And I'm here to tell you, you can rock the boat, right? Respectfully. I don't want any chanclas being thrown or anything. If you start, telling your parents something that they're not happy with. But at the same time, whenever you're talking to your spouse or other family members or friends, there's a way to have conversations that really lets people know where you're coming from. Once again, talking about your past and really understanding that. So then that way you can move forward. And this idea of limiting beliefs it's all in our heads. But a big part of that, the way it gets into our heads, is through family and friends, environment, the focus. It's very important to understand what environment you're in and what you're putting focus on. So if you for whatever reason feel like you're stuck or like I could do that, but like I don't really want to or something, then you have to really understand where am I putting my focus, where am I setting my roots down, and you have to really think about this because it's a grind. No matter what job you do, it's definitely a grind, and I know about grinds because I worked at a movie theater. It was 3+ years all throughout high school. And the thing that was tough for me was going through so many years. I was picking up, popcorn. I was selling tickets. I was, selling concessions, but I never really thought about potentially being like an assistant manager or a manager. And I saw other people getting, moving up the ladder, and I was just like, nah, that's not me. I'm not gonna do that. Who am I to lead, right? This is a key limiting belief that a lot of times we think like, who am I to do this or to transition or to lead? And for me specifically, it was to lead. And when you think about this, it's really just imposter syndrome because you're already counting yourself out. You're saying, "Can I even do this?" And if you're further along in your career, sometimes you've accomplished so much, and then you think, "Wait, did I really do that? Like, was that me? Or maybe it was like a fluke. Maybe it was just lucky, right?" And it's important to really like look at imposter syndrome and just there's an old saying with psychology where you have to just face your fears, right? Like it's a monster, and you have to really look at imposter syndrome for what it is. And I wish that if I could go back in time and talk to young Eric that was working at the movie theater and never like really wanted to be an assistant manager or manager, I would question him. I would push him, and I would say, okay, why aren't you going forward with this? And I'm sure young Eric would say, well, am I even capable? Am I even capable of leading a team or a group of people? And who am I to lead, to be this manager? And what do I really have to offer? I'm just a kid in high school, and I clean this, and I'm a goofy kid, and I'm lighthearted. I'm friends with people, but What am I really offering to the managerial position or the leadership position? And I wanted to almost break through with answers to that, and hopefully this will help you in whatever journey you're in, either transitioning or looking to level up. And the first thought of that imposter syndrome of like, am I capable, is asking questions. I would tell young Eric, hey, what do you mean you don't even know if you're capable? Like, do you even know what it has to offer? Like, did you ask like what it entails? The simple act of just asking questions, of saying like, hey, I noticed that, people are doing assistant manager work. What does that really entail? Like, what do you have to do to get there? And just by asking those simple questions, you might learn that you don't even like it. You're like, oh, wow, I don't want to do that. Or you might learn, oh, that's a lot easier than I thought. I can do that. And you don't know until you ask. Definitely don't count yourself out. The other thing is, if young Eric was saying, "Who am I to lead?" Right? Like, I've never led before. Who am I to really do this? I would respond back by saying that you have value. Understand where you came from. Understand that you, whatever you did in your past, whether it be within your own family, taking care of your brother, taking care of your sister, like being there for your parents, being involved in certain groups in school. You never know what those little things might trigger into someone else's head and say, yeah, you could actually do this. So don't count yourself out, and make sure that you give yourself value first. Give yourself props for your unique past that you have. And then also, what do I really have to offer? These are gifts. These are my gifts that you would tell the employer, or whenever you're transitioning. This is what you would tell yourself. You have gifts to offer. Anything. So, for example, whenever I was going through a transition from tech to from entertainment to tech, I had to tell myself all these different things. Am I capable of doing this? Who am I really, offer this to this space? And what do I really have to offer? I had to tell myself that I was enough. And coming from the experience that I came from, being on set and being working with other actors and improvising, all these kind of different things had to kind of build up my self esteem so I can go forward and really make that jump into the transition. So I wanted to talk a little bit further about the switch that it made, because it's a lot. There's a lot going on. There's a lot that you have to pump yourself up for, right? And the first thing that I thought of was being comfortable failing. That's first and foremost. I mean, like, you have to get that little voice outside of your head and just break away, because it's important to just go out there. And if you're worried about sending out a cold email, or if you're worried about talking to someone about a potential position, or if you're worried about, like, making sure that you're everything's ready in your portfolio, you have to try. You won't know until you try. And I would say, just jump. You have to take that big jump. Um, whenever I was first kind of figuring out how I was going to make this transition, I I said to myself, instead of having New Year's resolutions, I was going to have New Year's fears, New Year fears, right? Like, basically, I was going to write a list of fears that I had that I was going to conquer. And this kind of switched my thinking. Instead of being like, okay, what do I want to accomplish as far as, like, lose weight or get in the gym more, or, like, get this project done. I'm like, what am I really fearful of? And for example, one of those years was like doing stand-up comedy, getting in front of everyone and telling jokes, right? I signed up to be in a stand-up comedy class and ended up performing. And it doing little jumps like that before I got into the tech space was really helpful for me, because I was able to slowly just start, like ticking away at different things that I was fearful of, and it stopped being so scary. So sometimes you have to jump multiple times to do the big jump, right? And that's very important. And I, during this time, whenever I was getting, like, myself pumped up, like, all right, I'm gonna do this transition. I'm gonna start a tech startup. I'm gonna get people together. I'm gonna lead. I I was in church, and they were saying that they wanted more groups, and they were trying to get people involved with marriage Bible study groups, and I had just gotten married, and I was just like, all right, I mean, I don't know how I can offer. And I started going through all the different things that imposter syndrome tells you, like, am I good enough? What do I really bring to the table? We just got married. Like, is this even going to work? Um, but yeah, I just jumped and said we would do it. And it was scary. It was definitely scary making that transition and saying, hey, we're going to lead a group of people that are married, and we're going to do this based off of the 2 or 3 months that we've been married, and I learned a lot through that. And as you can see, these little jumps were all helping leading up to the bigger transition. But I want you to understand from this point of view, whenever the first time you say that you're going to lead, which was in my case the marriage Bible study, was like being like, all right, we're leading this. The first time you say I'm going to lead, you're eliminating not only fears but also to doubts in your mind. One of the biggest doubts is like can I even do this? And it's like by just saying that you are doing it, you're doing it. And it was a concept that was so hard for me to get through as a leader, because I had someone else that mentored me, and they said, I was like asking questions. I was like, man, I was like, how do I prepare for this? How do I prepare for that? How do I become a good leader? And he was like, just by raising your hand and saying I'll do it, that in itself you're leading, right? Because not everyone's willing to raise their hand. Now, to be a good leader, now you have to take other steps and learn about people and processes, emotional intelligence, all that stuff. But just by raising your hand, that's a huge step, and you have to recognize that. So going into this, I realized three key things that I learned. One was just showing up means a lot, right? These are things that I learned as a leader, like the best way to just kind of jump in and lead. So just know that just showing up was the one of the bare minimum things, and saying, hey, I'm gonna be here every Monday, and I'm gonna be doing a marriage group, or hey, I'm gonna be here at this place, and if you need me, just swing by. These are qualities of a leader, and it's so basic sometimes that people forget that just being there, being consistent, matters. I also wrote here, it's like your voice can't be heard if you're not there to voice it, which is important because as Latinos, you have to understand that whenever we are not in the room, it doesn't matter who's leading it, but how do we expect change to happen if your voice isn't heard? And just by showing up, your voice can be heard. The second thing that I learned was just being vulnerable. This is key. I would say that if you are looking at trying to take into that transition of whatever you're trying to do, whether it be transitioning from your current career to another sector of your career, or transitioning from not leadership to leadership, sometimes being vulnerable can make all the difference. And we see too many times that people would just charge straight forward, which is fine for some leaders. But there's other leaders that, in order to really say, hey, I'm setting the tone here, is by saying, hey, I don't really know this specific thing, but I'm going to figure it out. Or, hey, I need help with this. Can you help me? Right? Delegating. There's so many different things with being vulnerable that I had to learn doing the marriage Bible study, that simple things like, hey, we can't cook for everyone beforehand. Can people bring stuff? Or hey, like I don't really understand this part that is being talked about here. Does anyone else care to elaborate? And then that way we can talk about it in the group. You're going to become a better leader, a better worker, a better everything whenever you understand that being vulnerable and just sharing a little bit more about you and where you're coming from, about your past, it could actually help you and help others help you. So then that way your future can be brighter in that way. The third thing I learned was making sure that you prepare a plan and then prepare freedom. Because I can't tell you how many times we just were like, this is how it's going to happen. And then we show up and everything was just a mess. And it's fine. It's completely fine. It works that way in so many different times whenever you're leading. Also, too, when you're transitioning, like imagine imagine going into a job interview and, it just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like it's a good fit. But then you saying, hey, I really love what you guys are doing with the company. I would love to, get plugged in any kind of field in this sector. Like if you go in for a creative director and then you come out as, a graphic designer, that's fine. That's still a win. But being able to be just more flexible in that sense to allow for that freedom, because planning, you can only do so much. You can only do so much planning, and then at a certain point, you just got to let it go and see what happens. Right? It's part of the whole jumping and letting it all go. So yeah, I wanted to also get into the actual transition from entertainment to tech, and it was a big transition because I had really no experience working with bigger companies, and I've been told that my transition, even though I'm still doing entertainment and acting, it's like my transition was something that was kind of not normal, because most people, whenever they look at entertainment, they usually plug into a different type of field and not necessarily a CEO of a startup, right? But I wanted to kind of go through different things, and the first thing I wanted to talk about was I was really just solving a personal pain point, and this is important because I was bringing my past into tech. That's how I got my passion for it. Was yes, I love being around computers and doing design and all that stuff, but really it's like my personal pain point of having this busy life of wanting to connect with friends, wanting to solve this scheduling issue. I wanted to solve this, and it led me because I was so passionate about it. Right, I I had to think, how am I going to make this transition really happen and not give up on it? And I came to three understandings. And you can take these three understandings and you can fit them into whether it's your transition for different jobs, or you can also look into like transitioning to leadership. But really, it's like understanding your gifts. What do you bring to the table? Going back to the imposter syndrome and limiting beliefs, it's like really understanding what your gifts are. And I realized that my gift, my gift of just being able to show up and be vulnerable was very important coming into this. Understanding where your gifts fit in, that was another thing. It's like I didn't really understand where it was going to fit in. I'm like, how is this going to work? Like, okay, I'm an actor. Like, I know storytelling, all this kind of stuff. Like, I was very perplexed as to how I was going to make it happen. And then the last one is getting others to understand your vision. This was the hardest one because if you don't understand the first two, you're not going to get to the third one, right? So I was like, cool, I can act. What do I do here? And I went to a meetup. It was like a tech meetup, and I was talking to someone, and they were like, "Oh, like where are you from?" And I told them that I was from the entertainment space, and I was transitioning into the tech field, and I was doing a startup, and I was interested in like kind of like learning more. And in telling my story, she kind of looks at me and she was all like, okay, so she's like, so you went to school for graphic design and video production? I was like, yeah. So she's like, okay, so you can design. And I'm like, oh, cool. All right, I can design. She's like, okay. And then she's all like, so you're an actor, and you go through a lot of different characters and stuff. So you're good at putting yourself in other people's shoes. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess I could put myself in other people's shoes, and I can see kind of like where they're coming from and their own personal pain points and all their different struggles. And then she was like, okay. So she's like, you're also good at telling stories because you're an actor. You're able to take things off the page and talk about this and have a beginning, middle, and end and all that stuff. I was like, yeah. So I was like, okay, I could tell stories. Yeah, I'm like, I didn't see where she was going with this, right? And then she was like, you're a UI UX designer. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't, okay. And then she kind of explained more. Like, see, with user experience, you kind of go through these different things. Like, you have to go through a user journey. You have to kind of map out all the different things they're going to do. The research that you have to do is pretty intense, very similar to going through scripts and doing research about the character there, and if you need to do more research on the side about the timepiece or period piece, you do that. There's just so many different things, and combining that with the fact that I'd gone to school with design, I mean, I was at a loss for words that there was even something available like this. But I wouldn't have gotten to this point where it's like you look at the design, you look at the mock-ups, you look at the vision of what I wanted to do, and then I built a startup. And then I basically used the designing and the mock-up and sharing my storytelling vision to get my co-founders and friends involved to build this and to continue growing. And I never would have thought that would be possible. And that's why going backwards, like going all throughout the talk, talking about the limiting beliefs that really stop me from thinking this way, and from the switch of being able to just lead and say, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to go to networking events. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to share my story. I'm going to tell them that I'm very early on. I have no idea how I'm going to get into this, and I have no idea how I'm going to start this. All this led up to me being able to finally be able to work on something that I'm very passionate about, very proud of, but also too, it opened up my mind to be able to transition into anything. I like once you're able to do it once and you understand the process and understand your past and your gifts, you're like, okay, I get it. Like, boom, what else? Give me something else, you know? And you feel empowered. And that's what I hope that by sharing my journey of how I got to this point, you're like, yeah, I get it. I can do that as well. But I have to be honest with you guys. I didn't do this alone. I did this with the help of Community, not the TV show Community. This kind of community. See, community is important because I wouldn't have been able to, first of all, get past my limiting beliefs until I switched my environment up, right? I was going and working at a certain place that everyone around there in the workplace, they were not encouraging or empowering one another. So how is like aside from my family, it's like I also had to figure out how I needed to get out of that situation of like being able to really be around like-minded people, and feel empowered. So it's very important that you go out and you find whatever community you need to find to make the transition or to make that leadership, because whenever you're trying to find a community, it's important to look at two different things: goal oriented and emotional support. And whenever I was looking at a community, I was very nervous, because I didn't know if I was going to be accepted. Once again, imposter syndrome. What do I have to offer? Is this going to work out? What do I really bring to the table? But then grounding yourself and saying, okay, this is my past. I'm proud of it. I feel empowered by my past, doing whatever I did in the past, and then now moving forward and walking into this community with the background that I have. And by doing this, I first went to a goal oriented community, right? And this was the tech startup meetup, and these were other meetups. And this is being around people that are like minded. They're in the same industry that you're in. They have the same knowledge. So being around these people was exciting because you get to talk shop, you get to trade, ideas, you get to talk about, where they're from, where you're from. It's really interesting and it's really empowering because then you start seeing everyone's journey, everyone's story, and then you start seeing like a through line. And it's important because you also don't want to get bogged down too much, um, doing it alone, and that's where the emotional support comes in, right? Being a part of a great community is also part emotional support. And the reason why I put different industries and shared backgrounds is because, at the end of the day, to be there for someone, you don't need to be in the same work field. If anything, it actually hinders the emotional support there, because if you're in the same field, yeah, you can be there for one another. Hey, I support you. But if you're not in the same field, you have nothing else to offer except, hey, I'm here for you, man. I'm here to listen. Man, that sounds tough. So think about it that way too. Like even though you may have emotional support in your goal oriented community, think about having just a sole emotional support community as well. And this will really help with any kind of I guess self-doubt or thoughts about like not being able to get past certain blocks, because sometimes the blocks aren't really task related or work related, and it's more emotional related and internal, right, and in our minds. And making sure that you have like some kind of like grounding and shared background, whether it be hey, we're all from the same high school, we grew up together, or if you know if you're out in New York or LA and one of these other bigger cities by yourself, a shared background could be just being Latino, or being from a certain you know, if you go to the same church or something, or if you go, you know, it's the same ethnic background, or parents being immigrants. You know, this can also help, and that's why Techqueria is also great, because I feel like they kind of cover both. They cover being goal oriented in the tech world, but also hey, we all have shared backgrounds, and we all understand one another whenever we talk about our immigrant parents, or you know, filing for visas, or you know, the Dreamer Act and figuring things out. These are all similar things that help us connect and help us empower our past and help us get moving forward in the future. So to recap everything, yes, you can totally rock the boat, but respectfully. Like I said, I don't want anyone kind of thinking about this and saying, all right, you know, I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to start like asking for a raise and being a leader and doing this and doing that. No, I mean, it's like, you know, do everything respectfully and mindfully. Um, but yeah, definitely don't be afraid to rock that boat, because we need it. We need it in so many different areas. If you ever think about going into a different field or a different job, just remember that, you know, especially if you're, you know, coming from an immigrant background, or if you're first generation, or if you've worked like, you know, minimum wage jobs the you know, the majority of your life, you have certain insight that can rock the boat in a positive way. Especially too, it's like, imagine if you were a manager and you came from like being goofy and joking around with people, right? Like regular employees, and then all of a sudden you're in a managerial position. More people are going to feel like, hey, I want to come to work, because you can balance the both. You can say, hey, this is what we need to get done, but I'm also not going to be like rude about it and talk down to you, because I know what it's like to be in your shoes. So this is very key to understand that you can rock the boat respectfully. And of course, ask first. Like if there's anything that I could go back and do, is I would ask more questions whenever I saw people kind of leveling up or going into different fields, or doing stuff that I'm like, I wish I could do that. I would just ask. A lot of times, whenever we don't ask, we kind of trick ourselves into thinking we don't want it. And sometimes we don't. Like, you know, if you see something, you're like, "Ah, I definitely don't want any part of that." But sometimes we kind of secretly do, but we're just like, nah, that's not for me. I'm not going to be that guy. It's important to really take a step forward, take your pride to the side, and just say, hey, maybe I should ask about this before I count myself out. And then, of course, with asking comes being vulnerable as well. So asking first, being vulnerable about your past, and marching forward. The other recap was getting comfy failing. This is something that I've gotten comfortable with. I think that a lot of times we still have moments. I know I myself still have moments where I'm like, is this gonna work? But then, you know, it happens, and you're like, okay, I did it. It's done. I'll do it again, right? So just keep that in mind. It's like, if you're not at that place yet where you failed, make it a mission, make it a priority, make it a focus to fail. And it doesn't have to be like, you know, a life changing fail. It can be like little fails, like, you know, asking for something at Starbucks that's not on the menu, or, you know, going up to someone random at a networking event, and, you know, at the very end saying like, hey, let's catch up afterwards, and getting you know, their connections, and saying, how about next Monday or something, and them saying, no, we can't do that next Monday, maybe some other time, and you guys deal with whatever. But yeah, get comfy with being told no, get comfy with failing. And then of course, the three understandings of understanding yourself, understanding what your gifts are, what you bring to the table, and really understanding, getting other people to understand where you're coming from. I see this a lot in students as well, and people that are in college. It's just one of the toughest things that holds people back in transitioning their career is getting their spouse or their friends or their coworkers or their parents or their family to really understand where they're coming from and let them know, hey, this is how I feel, this is my background, and this is where I want to go. And it's important to really understand that you can move forward. You can move forward just having those three understandings of yourself and being able to get other people to understand. And of course, finding community because yeah, I mean, like I said, Techqueria is great, and it's really tough to find good community, and don't get discouraged when you find a bad community, right? Always make sure that you come in with a purpose and you don't settle, because if you're settling with your community, then you're settling with your career, you're settling with your life. You got to make sure that you continue pushing forward, be comfortable failing, going to a community, and okay, it doesn't work out, go to the next one. But yeah, just finding that community is super important, especially coming out from LA. I wouldn't have been able to get into entertainment. I wouldn't have been able to get into tech if I did not find my community for those. And yeah, if you want to connect later, feel free to follow me, Twitter, Instagram, and I'll be looking at my message requests on Twitter today. So feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. But yeah, just I would love to connect and hear what you guys thought, or if you have any other lingering doubts, let me know. Oh, can't hear you.
Okay, Eric, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Eric, I really love what you were talking about. There's support for the community, support for your work, but then supporting community. What would you say? Would you say that goes into hard skills versus soft skills, and then soft skills is more of the community engagement?
Soft skills, like for more like the emotional support part.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right on that. Yeah, separating it between hard skills and soft skills, definitely.
And so, what would you say? Would be your biggest tip in terms of like making that like, all right, say we let's do a little role play, right?
Yeah.
Say we were meeting, right, and we shook hands. What would be your way of connecting with me, or what's your go-to?
I mean, honestly, I try to just be really honest and say, hey, we'd love to connect. Do you mind sharing numbers, or like, what do you have any social channels that you want to connect on? Because
Mhm.
sometimes people want you to follow them, and if you're if, like on specific channels, right? So like maybe they're building up their Twitter or something, and they're like, oh, follow me on Twitter, and then like if you do it right then and there, boom, you follow each other back. DMs are open.
Yeah.
So yeah, just always asking like, hey, like where can I follow you? Where can I connect with you?
Cool. And then I'll share mine. So it's just like when we opened this. Like I saw your plaid shirt, immediately went for the compliment, right? Before I did a little bit of research on you. You go to the gym, pumpkin spice latte. Like I come
Ah,
prepared, ready to connect with you on a bunch of levels. Eric, thank you so much. We're actually, if you could help me transition, we're going to transition to networking and expo. And one more time, Eric, please say your handle so everybody can follow you.
oh yeah, for sure. It's at Eric V Lopez, ERICK, V as in Victor, and then Lopez.
All right, great. Thank you, Eric, and talk to you all later in a little bit.